Hello, my name is James Trost, and this is A2Insight. Today is the inaugural edition of Season 2 here at A2Insight, and we're very pleased to have as our first guest this year, Mr. Jim Chaconas of Colliers International. Jim Chaconas, welcome to A2Insight.
Well, thank you.
We're very glad to have you here. Why don't you start out by just giving us a little bit more information about your background, growing up, and early influences, and let us get you up into, well, maybe around your mid-20s or early 30s and your family influences, and we'll start from there.
Well, I was born on the East Coast in Washington, D.C. We moved here in 1960. My father worked for the Schlitz Brewing Company. He came here. He was hired to take over the distribution from Carl Rayberg, who had Artificial Ice Company, who had the Arbor Springs Water and Artificial Ice and the beer distributorship. Halfway into it, my father bought the distributorship from him. We were a 1.5 truck operation in an old barn on Huron Street. And from a kid, you know, I was always, when you have a family business, you're there all the time. When I was 12, my feet could touch the pedal of a forklift. My life was over because you're doing that. At 15, I got a driver's license, so I'm not a truck. I grew up like on my competition a little different. I grew up sweeping floors. When I left, I was still sweeping floors. So, you know, delivering the half barrels, the kegs, loading trucks, sales. What was nice back then is the Schlitz Brewing Company was very progressive back then. And the things you see, wine coolers, draft wines and stuff, were all being done by them. And their schooling was really tough. You went there, they really had to go a week at a time, 2 minutes late, they send you home. So I grew up in that business and wanted to get out of that business. So I did that, then I went to the Merchant Marine Academy, sailed to the Great Lakes. Actually, my suite mate went down on the Fitzgerald, Tom Benson. So that wasn't the most thrilling. I thought getting on a ship in the middle of the lakes would be kind of cool. I went from Ashtabula, Ohio to Taconite Harbor, the UP. So that wasn't a real good career choice. So I came back, ended up in the beer business. And then in 1980, I got down to half barrel, hit me in the back, so I broke my back. So I left the business for 2 years to get some back surgery. My mother did residential real estate. My parents were divorced. And I started doing a little real estate. And I go, this is really kind of a cool industry. My first deal was I sold the Full Moon Bar on Main Street, which is kind of fun. So then the beer business had some problems. I got talked into coming back. Took it from 185,000 cases up to about 1 million cases. I brought Coors, Samuel Adams, you know, to improve the business. So when we started bringing in some of the microbreweries before they got popular. We did the old Chelsea Ale, which is now the Bell's beer. Introduced Frankenmuth into Ann Arbor. So it's kind of fun. It taught me some sales, and the engineering was my numbers, so I really like, you know, math, numbers, statistics. So the real estate just kind of fit right in.
Well, it's interesting. So in other words, this is a family business. Your father had started this business. You've obviously grown it substantially since its incorporation of the Fullman. I think it used to have a lot of pool tables. Because I remember back there, I used to actually go there. So you've done this, and then your mother is also very entrepreneurial and getting into real estate, I assume residential real estate.
My mother was the top residential agent in Ann Arbor. She started, her first job was in her 40s with her divorce. Then she did that for a while, then she got tired of that and did a high-end women's boutique in Carytown, Alexandra's.
Interesting. So
she was very entrepreneurial.
Well, apparently, what made you then, now that you've created this wonderful distributorship throughout Ann Arbor, how does that then move you into the next realm, which is somehow you moving into real estate? Are you doing both at the same time? How do you coordinate these things?
The beer business myself and you know, the family business, it just wasn't. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the family that much either. It's just hard to work for family. So I just decided one day I don't want to do it anymore. So I left, 2 little kids and a few bucks, and we started over. I went into commercial real estate at Reinhardt. Dave Ludden and I knew each other from the 60s and 70s. His wife was the bar manager at Floods, and he worked at Campus Corners, so we all kind of grew up together. And he gave me a nice opportunity to start there in commercial real estate. And I brought a little different flavor to real estate where nobody ever did marketing. And my experience in the beer business was, you know, Budweiser never won a taste test, but people think it's great. So I brought the marketing into commercial real estate. between the Ann Arbor News, we do TV ads, we do direct mail, you know, so we're out, we touch people. And my salesmanship was repetitive sales. The beer business, you see somebody every week. So when you sell somebody something, I kept in contact with them. So it just kept growing. And it did well.
No, that's interesting. So getting into commercial real estate sales, which I mean most people kind of just gravitate into residential sales and buyers and sellers, but do you contribute not only the experience you had in the beer distributorship, but also the people you knew in town since you've been here since, how old were you when your family
I was
moved
8.
here? So you went, what schools did you go to in
Well,
town?
I went through, you know, I went through 4 elementary schools, then I went through Slauson, and then I started Pioneer, moved to Florida for 2 years, went to 2 high schools there, came back and graduated first class out of the Huron High system.
Okay, so you're really right at the beginning
Oh yeah,
of that.
but I
Oh
went
my
through
gosh.
from high school to high school.
Okay. Well, then saying so commercial real estate, you're getting into that specialized, given the experience of your mother and your marketing in that. What was it like when you first started to get into commercial real estate as opposed to what most people consider residential real estate in terms of how it functions?
What I did was I looked at who was the big gun and what does he know and what did he know better, and I looked and I said, okay, that's my competition. So I went and I took a picture of every commercial building in Washington County with a little Polaroid to kick it out, and I'd knock on the door, see who the tenant was. So in 6 months, you have to know what you're selling. And I think the biggest problem in real estate is it's like selling cars. What's out in the parking lot? Well, people don't know what's out in the parking lot. So when I'm talking to somebody and this doesn't work, I know what else is available. I have a great memory for buildings, not people, but buildings. I can tell you the rent, the square footage of the buildings. So I had to learn as much as my competition. And then my assistant Debbie came over with me, and we were the first ones. We got the city to print out every commercial building on a disc, which back then was, you know, so we were the only person who had all the information in our offices. So we just kept progressing. Then we started marketing in, you know, the newspapers, but always learning the inventory. You know, I constantly have a database of inventory.
Now, were you under a brokerage in terms of commercial initially? You said with Reinhardt.
I was with Reinhardt. Dave Lutton brought me in, and he had a couple guys in there. That Dennis O'Dine was a perfect match for me. He gave me the tools to keep selling because I was aggressive enough to go hit the streets, and what he did was made my life easier. So it was really nice that Dave and Dennis and Charlie Reinhardt, you know, helped me build that. So I give a lot of credit to those guys. Then I had met Chris Grant, who was running First Martin, smartest guy in commercial real estate. We became friends, so every week I would, you know, have coffee with Chris, and he'd teach me different things. And my greatest attribute was when he finally said, I need some help. And like 4 years later, I go, I think I finally made it. Chris needs some help.
Okay, so Chris is the name in commercial real estate here in Ann Arbor at that time.
He was the smartest guy in real estate.
And he was with what company?
First Martin.
First Martin.
First Martin. Bill Martin's company.
Okay, so then you moved over from
No, we just got to be friends.
Okay, all right.
Because they weren't brokerage, they just managed a lot of real estate, and they helped build, create, very smart people. So I just learned, because they managed, you know, how to really approach real estate differently than most people.
Right, well, then how do you evolve then, given, I mean, can you imagine someone taking pictures of every building, and that's pretty aggressive.
It was.
But at the same
10
time,
hours a day.
your name appears all over town if anybody who lives in this town sees it. But it's not just you, it's you and an organization called Colliers International. Could you give us a little bit idea of how you ended up at this organization and what do they do?
Well, from Reinhardt, I went to McKinley. Ron Weiser talked to me to come over there. Great organization, learned a ton. Just, you know, what's great is each place I went to, they taught me something. And they were phasing out of that, so I ended up looking for a place to go. And a friend of mine was over at Colliers. Colliers is an international throughout the world. They had a small office in Ann Arbor. And he kind of talked me into going over. So when I came over, they had about, you know, 6 or 8 listings. I brought 154 over. So Colliers got a big boost into Ann Arbor. And so we've maintained the top 10% United States of Colliers, and we're the smallest market by a couple million people. So we're kind of a different little company.
Who wouldn't like someone to come over with not only the 150 listings to an organization with only 10 or
yeah,
previous?
about 6 or 10.
And how long have you been at Colliers?
Going on my 9th year.
And what is the specific role of vice president? Is it a corporate structure? Is it just you're doing real estate? Is there anything more administrative in that? How large is your staff at this organization?
Well, I run the Ann Arbor office. I think everybody after about 4 years becomes a vice president.
Okay.
It's like, it's just a title I give everybody. But my project is Ann Arbor. Debbie's been with me, all the way through. She's like my right arm. So we run this office here. I've got, 4 guys underneath me. So I have 2 office staff and then 4 other, agents to work with me. And we're all kind of partners. We don't run it like here's a head and here's the chief of the Indians. We're all financially obligated. So every deal, everybody gets paid on. So instead of just getting me, everybody in the office has got an interest in it.
Jeez.
So I look at a partnership as more this way instead of this way.
Well, that's certainly not the business model I remember when I was in real estate. I can tell you that. One of the reasons I asked you to be on A2Insight, Jim, is that Ann Arbor is a unique market, not only residentially, but in terms of commercially. How many times do we endlessly hear this is one of the greatest places to live in the United States? It's the #1 of quality life, highest educated people come here and want to live here. And well, I would assume that would also entail those that are owning and operating businesses. So could you give me just an idea of the kinds of businesses that, and we'll get more, not indigenous ones, not me starting up, let's say I'm a business owner not in this area, and I'm thinking about coming to Ann Arbor, and I pulled into your office, and why would I be interested in relocating or starting a business here?
Well, a good example is some of the tech firms. Barracuda brought an office here from California because, #1, we have the University of Michigan, which kicks out some of the brightest people in the world. So there's their labor force. And the cost of living in California compared to Ann Arbor, it's like, 25% of the cost. So we've got a great labor market. We've got a place where young people want to live. You take a look at, we helped redevelop the State and Liberty Corridor. We redid the old Borders headquarters and stuff up there, the State Theater and stuff. So they have a fun place to be. They're working downtown. They're walkable. Some of the student housing these kids are living in, so they don't need a car, so they'll pay the extra rents. So it's kind of like living in New York but in Ann Arbor, or Chicago and Ann Arbor. Great restaurants, great music, some great bars. It's a nice place to be. I raised my kids here. I liked it.
So I would think that's kind of part of the pitch then when you're talking to some business executive that might be considered like someone from Barracuda, for instance. I've also had on this program last year, we had Sally Hart Peterson, who's very into economic development. And one of the comments that we came is we do have some challenges as it relates specifically to downtown parking, commercial real estate, zoning issues. Could you give me just from your experience, some of the governmental challenges or zoning challenges that are preventing this community from getting even better from your perspective as a commercial real estate agent?
Well, a good example is I did the first student high-rise. 1964, the last one was built. I did the landmark. It took us 6.5 years to work through everything. And then things started to smooth out. When you've got people on city council, which are really kind of cool because they're bringing all types, but they're not business people. They're not, builders. They're not real estate people. So to try and explain to them that, you need to have parking, like Sally and I talk about, or we need to streamline the organization to go a little faster through the cost. That each month delay is a cost, where they don't, when you get in front of them, they don't understand that, you've got this property you're paying for. You've got these contractors ready to go. So the cost starts to rise. And then they start adding some of the restrictions on here. You talk about they want to have workforce housing, which is a great idea, but years ago I worked with them and said, here's some old apartment complexes we can buy for $35,000 a unit. Well, to build is $200,000 a unit. So, it's hard to grow. So I don't really blame the city. I think John Heftia really pushed things through and got things going. And I think, the new mayor, really nice guy, John had years to learn where, it takes a while to get the stuff going. So it's difficult. Ann Arbor keeps changing and growing. In any business, changing and growing is hard.
But it does obviously help to be a university town with the education level.
That's
just
great.
a beautiful. I mean, it's great to be ranked high on these things. This is, when business contacts you, and again, you've been doing this for a while, particularly. Have you ever had somebody you really wanted, some business you didn't get, you worked everywhere, and it just, somebody beat you to it for whatever reason that just didn't come through, and, or, you know what I'm talking about? Some has to happen. I mean,
Yeah,
you
you don't win, you know, you don't hit 100%. The nice thing about we do is we have enough volume, and I try to train the guys is, you know, sometimes it doesn't work out. And when it doesn't work out, especially if you're in contact with them, first of all, tell them that we appreciate you giving us a shot. You know, we always, and move to the next one, because we have you know, 140 listings that we need to worry about. We have 40, 50 deals working on, and you can't paralyze yourself. You have to keep moving forward, but also respect that the person, if it didn't work out, that there's sometimes, you know, that it just doesn't work, and it's not personal, and you know, and at least you appreciate somebody, you know, giving you a shot to do it. So we always treat things as a positive.
Now, as a commercial real estate agent, not a business developer, there's a distinction. You're taking a look at properties that are already there and leasing them out. You're not building.
Yes.
I always think, and again, I don't know, I grew up here, but then I lived in Minneapolis, and I loved skylines. And
My son's in Minneapolis. Goes to school
okay,
there.
excellent. Well, there's good institutions there.
Yeah.
I graduated from a university there. But I say this to everybody, I've said this to various council members, I like skyscrapers, and I've never quite understood the aversion in this community to that. And I mean, it seems to me the complaint is space, green spaces, all of these other constraints, zoning and regulations, and then no one wants to have another 26-story building like the student housing. And I guess it would seem to me that economically, a high-rise is a high-rise business, whether it be a business or workforce housing, would be something feasible. Or is it something you think, well, we don't need it because it's not, we've got plenty of, how do you feel about
Well, number one,
buildings?
it's a change, and people remember Ann Arbor 1970 when it was kind of sleepy and not much going on. When the Full Moon Bar went to Main Street, it was the first one that had outside seating. So Main Street was dead. Briarwood opened up, Main Street died. Then the Scene died, Real Seafood went in, so it just kind of built from there. So it's a change. But people wanted the green belt. So you took the green belt, you took all this Ann Arbor housing out, and so the idea is to go vertical, so you still have the open space where people can, you know, walk out in the field, look at a field. So you can't have both. If you want to have all this area that doesn't have housing on it, you've got to create it somewhere. So what's happened from that is it's taken the residential housing, has gone through the roof because people come to Ann Arbor and they don't know it's Saline, Dexter, Chelsea. Their second house may be out there, but their first house will move in because they only heard Ann Arbor. So we have great communities outside of it, but they know the Ann Arbor.
And and I would assume with the limited new office space and trying to fill the commercial, one of the things that Ms. Howard Peterson mentioned was that you've got places like 401 Main Street, because the rents are so high they can't find anybody in there. You've got parking problems downtown. So you know, given the fact that if you're somebody from out of this region, it's not just Ann Arbor market. I mean, I would assume because the downtown is somewhat saturated with a lack of parking options, that this does benefit Ypsilanti and Saline. And I mean, you don't limit your commercial to just downtown. Is that, it certainly does, it does benefit?
No, but 70% is Ann Arbor. I mean, it drifts out a little bit. Saline built a nice industrial park, which worked out well because it brings their tax base down. But Dexter's it's a bedroom community of Ann Arbor. Saline's a bedroom community. You don't see their downtowns that vibrant. Dexter's getting there. They're starting to build some housing downtown. Chelsea's a little bit far. We live out by Chelsea. So really the concentration, people come here, they want Ann Arbor. They want Ann Arbor address. So we're fighting the challenges. In downtown, without the parking, we have a lot of empty space, which we hadn't had. And the cost of the rent isn't so bad, but when you start adding parking in there, you add $7, $8 a square foot to $30-some, it starts to go up.
And this, one of the complaints about Ann Arbor also, and I would assume from your perspective, and it's always this townie versus the gownie crowd here. And I remember the Edwards building, for instance, on State Street, which I thought, my goodness, what a great location. You know, half a mile to 94, 5 miles from campus. There's no way the university is going to take that property away from us. And they did. And
well, they sort of did. I mean, John Hefty had contacted me. We were bringing an offer in, and it couldn't move fast enough to, because they had a first right of refusal over the University of Michigan. So that could have gone, to the city, and we had a buyer that could have done it, but the city moved a little slow, so it didn't happen. But it's really a cool facility. And people look at university. Without university, we wouldn't be here. And we have as much parkland, if not more, than we have university. So, it's kind of a balance you have to watch. But the university, to me, it's what's made Ann Arbor.
Right. Well, I mean, there's always the argument, where they're not going anywhere, and I mean, thank goodness, or we would be just a Chelsea or a Saline. I mean, what else? What other reason? Huron River?
Right.
It's just not going to be here. You did mention initially that the whole idea of going back with the university, the idea of, I mean, we've got, I don't know how many engineering students, computer science people graduate from this. The U of M, one of the best schools in the country, if not the world, I think was ranked 15th. They're not staying here. They're going to Chicago. They're going to New York.
I think, but they come back. We have a lot of them come back.
Well, then that's encouraging. But I'm wondering, where do the entrepreneurs that you deal with that are looking at high tech, are there some indigenous, or where are we getting this?
Well, some of them do stay. I mean, you look at Lamasoft, all these companies, Pillar, and they're great. A lot of it is local. But what's funny is you see a lot of people, and we deal with them, where they leave and they come back. The big city's fun for a few years, but Ann Arbor's a place to have a family. So it's kind of a, it's nice. But the labor force is hard. I mean, we still have a shortage. These companies are here, but it's nice. It's not like California where they start bidding the labor up. So people make a good living. And Ann Arbor isn't cheap, but it's not, go to New York, go to Chicago, go to D.C. We're inexpensive next to those cities.
What do you see, having done this now, and actually you're a townie now since you've been here since you were in 8th grade, I guess you get that, and all of your entrepreneurial and business activities. What are the challenges in your industry specifically in Ann Arbor in the coming, let's say, 5 to 10 years specifically, because we're not going to, I don't know how you're going to resolve the parking problem and the transportation. It's a parking lot for an hour, and people are not going to get on buses. I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. We're not big enough for light rail. So I'm just wondering, when you look at where you'd like to see, I mean, you're actually quite responsible, it seems to me, for some of the business, a lot of the business growth in this community. Where do you want to see it go in your role and the commercial development of our community in the next 10 years?
Well, I think the city is looking at it, looking at adding some parking. It's not going to be enough, but it'll help. The bus system did work a little bit. We have a lot of people with that bus pass that they'll start out with a lot of cars. They'll give them incentive to take the bus. But it's still cold. It's Michigan. So it's not, you'll never have a walkable city when it's that cold. We have a problem with our business we look at is inventory. In the city of Ann Arbor, everybody wants to buy something, there's nothing for sale. Everything in the last 15, 18 years has been bought, has been remodeled. It's kind of nice though, the restaurants we brought in, some of the features that have been brought in. But one thing they don't understand is the shopping is gone. The Amazon, whatever, you're not going to get the little boutiques and the shoe stores and the hardware stores, the food stores. Those you just kind of have to write off. And it's sad because I still, I buy my clothes locally. Shoes I have to go to there, but anything I can do here. I mean, I don't buy, I go to Bahans, I go to Van Boven's, I don't go to Macy's to buy clothes. So I try to do that because they're good customers, they're good people. I run Westgate Shopping Center. If you look at what we've got there, Mass Shoes is just, they're growing. So we took that mall, we kind of changed it around, we put the library in there. We got a 20,000 square foot library that's 40-some thousand people a month. So it's, it's there, but we had to figure out, since we're not going to have the shoe store, the dress shop, and all that stuff, where's the next generation? And I don't know where the next one's going to be. Because if this keeps up, they're talking about delivering groceries, so what's going to happen there? The grocery stores, the drug stores. If they start delivering drug stores, why go to, it's the whole world's shifting. We just have to watch it and run with it.
Well, and this was a complaint 15 years ago. Everyone thought with the ability to have the internet, why do we even have to get in a car to go to work? Think of the productivity loss of sitting in a parking lot car for an hour and a half going downtown both ways. But you haven't seen that as having necessarily a effect on ability to get businesses to want to have a need for an office where they could literally do most, I assume, functions at home.
Some of the companies I deal with, the building companies and stuff, they have 30% of employees work from their house. So they don't need that office space. But we used to build office buildings, you know, one person for every 250 square feet. Now we're doing it for one every 100 square feet. They're open office plans. Where my office became an open office plan, we're going to close it. We need a little more privacy and a little bit more. People start talking, you can't hear each other. So you see it just kind of shifting back and forth to, is it going to be an open floor plan? It's going to be a closed floor plan. So we're tearing things out and we're putting them back in these offices. So it'll shake itself out. We're just not sure where.
And then I guess the other thing is, it's kind of sad to think of masks and Schlanderer's jewelers that used to. I remember when I was growing up, there was nothing on Main Street. You had a drum store, you had Schlanderer's, and nothing else. And it's amazing in terms of the restaurants.
Kind of cool.
But then what you said, so no boutique shops, no books. I mean, what is going to take, particularly on the Main Street downtown area, other than restaurants?
Well, you look at the little bookstore that opened up there. You know, they're doing well. We put one in Courtyard Shopping Center. I run Courtyard, they put a little bookstore in there. Those seem to trend back up a little bit, but it's basically food. You take a look at, you know, Dexter, it's restaurants. You take a look at Chelsea, the Common Grill, they put a brewery downtown. So it's really kind of food use, which makes people walkable, and maybe a few antique stores. But I think the shopping, we always have people say, well, we want downtown shopping, but they don't shop there. So, you know, if you shop there, they would stay.
Mm-hmm. And that does, I remember when Briarwood started.
Oh, I remember that. Downtown emptied out.
And it's still, that is the, are there any more potential developments for something similar to that in terms of retail locations that have the parking? It seems to be an issue as out in the outer lying areas that would be needed, because some people, you know, people go, they think Briarwood doesn't serve needs, it's antiquated, I mean, you know, because it's not, and they go to Novi. I mean, is that kind of a development going to happen in this? Do we need something that would be more retail oriented in a large mall? Is that just, it doesn't happen anymore?
You know, it's kind of up in the air. You see where some people say the large malls are dead, and then other people, look what they did at Maple Village, or talking about doing an Arborland. Well, are they dead or are they not? I mean, I think the Gardner Whites, the Art Vans, the TJ Maxx, the Marshalls, the Home Goods, those will be around. You can't order that stuff online. You can go there, you see what's in, it's a shop, you buy it. The TJ Maxx at Westgate is just packed all the time. You know, the children's store there's packed at Westgate. You know, Barry's Bagel, the Probility. I mean, it can't be just straight office anymore. Courtyard, we have a dentist in there. We have a veterinary clinic in there. So you need a balance. Briarwood, I think eventually they'll, you know, they have so much land there, it's huge, that they could put, you know, they're talking about maybe an apartment complex, an office complex, which kind of makes you feel like you're downtown. You can walk into the mall, you can get restaurants, you can shop. So I think that some people say they're going to be dead, but I think they'll still be around. I think there's still people who want to shop.
Well, it certainly gives an interesting oversight of this area as it relates to the commercial. And then I guess the last question I have for you would be, you've done this now for
24 years.
24 years. Hopefully you'll be going on forever. How long do you envision yourself in this industry as a commercial relations? Do you see you evolving into any other kind of industry? This is your career. What do you do for fun? I mean, you're still going out there all the time taking pictures of every building in the county, or
I still do that. But I mean, I love my job. I've never thought I would find a job that I like so much. It's how I work is how I get paid. I still get to be creative. And then I do horses. I fox hunt horses. My wife and daughter and son all ride. They show hunts. But I get on a horse. I used to play rugby at Michigan, so I needed something a little more dangerous. And you know, you go fox hunting, so you're running full tilt through the woods, jumping streams and rocks and logs, and seeing nature. Fox hunting is different than people think. We don't hunt. We just chase. So I've been out there for 25 years and nothing's ever died. A few broken bones on some people, but yeah. But it's fun. So I have a horse farm. I live on a horse farm.
Okay. And so, but you're going to continue. You don't see any need to, your enjoyment with the horse and fox hunting and raising horses.
I may have to stop that, but the work as long as I can get up and go, I love my job as much as I started.
Great. And are you bullish or bearish on the future of Ann Arbor itself? Oh,
it's going to continue to grow. Ann Arbor, it's just such a wonderful place to have a family.
Well, Jim Chaconas, I want to thank you for appearing here on A2Insight and wish you the best of luck in our community as you find the right combination of people who want to be in our community, young families and businesses, so that we all have a wonderful future in this community. So
Well, thank you
once
for
again.
having us here.
You're very welcome.